Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet Nashtaprayeshva Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Reading from Canto 1, Chapter 10, Departure of Lord Krishna for Dwarka, Text 3. Nishamya Bhishma Uktam Atha Achyuta Uktam Nishamya Bhishmoktam Atha Achyutoktam Nishamya Bhishmoktam Atha Achyutoktam Nishamya Bhishmoktam Atha Achyutoktam Pravritta Vijnana Vidhuta Vibhramaha Pravritta Vijnana Vidhuta Vibhramaha Sashasa Gam Indra Iva Ajita Ashrayaha Sashasa Gam Indra Iva Ajita Ashrayaha Paridhyupantam Anuja Anuvartitaha Paridhyupantam Anujanuvartitaha Paridhyupantam Anujanuvartitaha Nishamya Bhishmoktam Athachyutoktam Pravritta Vijnana Vidhuta Vibhramaha Sashasagam Indra Ivajitashrayaha Paridhyupantam Anujanuvartitaha Nishamya Bhishmoktam Athachyutoktam Pravritta Vijnana Vidhuta Vibhramaha Sashasagam Indra Ivajitashrayaha Paridhyupantam Anujanuvartitaha Nishamya Bhishmoktam Athachyutoktam Pravritta Vijnana Vidhuta Vibhramaha Sashasagam Indra Ivajitashrayaha Paridhyupantam Anujanuvartitaha Nishamya Bhishmoktam Athachyutoktam Pravritta Vijnana Vidhuta Vibhramaha Sashasagam Indra Ivajitashrayaha Paridhyupantam Anujanuvartitaha Nishamya Bhishmoktam Athachyutoktam Pravritta Vijnana Vidhuta Vibhramaha Sashasagam Indra Ivajitashrayaha Paridhyupantam Anujanuvartitaha Nishamya bhishmoktam athachutoktam pravritta vijnana vidhuta vibhramaha sashasagamindra ivajitashrayah paridhyupantam anujanuvartitaha. Synonyms. Nishamya, after listening. Bhishma uktam, what was spoken by Bhishma Deva. Atha, as also. Achyuta uktam, what was spoken by the infallible Lord Krishna. Pravritta, being engaged in. Vijnana, perfect knowledge. Vidhuta, completely washed. Vibhramaha, all misgivings. Sashasa, ruled over. Gam, the earth. Indra, the king of the heavenly planet. Eva, like. Ajita Ashrayaha, protected by the invincible Lord. Paridhyupantam, paridhyupantam, including the seas. Anuja, the younger brothers. Anuvartitaha, being followed by them. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation. Maharaj Yudhishthira, after being enlightened by what was spoken by Bhishma Deva and Lord Sri Krishna, the infallible, engaged himself in matters of perfect knowledge because all his misgivings were eradicated. Thus, he ruled over the earth and seas and was followed by his younger brothers. Translation with repetition. Maharaj Yudhishthira, after being enlightened by what was spoken by Bhishma Deva and Lord Sri Krishna, the infallible, engaged himself in matters of perfect knowledge because all his misgivings were eradicated. Thus, he ruled over the earth and the seas and was followed by his younger brothers. Purport. The purport is a bit long, please bear with me. The modern English law of primogeniture, or the law of inheritance by the firstborn, was also prevalent in those days when Maharaj Yudhishthira ruled the earth and seas. In those days, the king of Hastinapura, now part of New Delhi, was the emperor of the world, including the seas, up to the time of Maharaj Parikshit, the grandson of Maharaj Yudhishthira. His younger brothers were acting as his ministers and commanders of state, and there was full cooperation between the perfectly religious brothers of the king. Maharaj Yudhishthira was the ideal king or representative of Lord Sri Krishna to rule over the kingdom of earth, and was comparable to Lord Indra, the representative ruler of the heavenly planet. The demigods like Indra, Chandra, Surya, Varuna, Vayu, etc. are representative kings of different planets of the universe, and similarly, Maharaj Yudhishthira was also one of them, including the kingdom of the earth. Similarly, Maharaj Yudhishthira was also one of them, ruling over the kingdom of the earth. Maharaj Yudhishthira was not a typically unenlightened political leader of modern democracy. Maharaj Yudhishthira was instructed by Bhishma Deva and the infallible Lord also, and therefore he had full knowledge of everything in perfection. The modern elected executive head of state is just like a puppet because he has no kingly power. Even if he is enlightened like Maharaj Yudhishthira, he cannot do anything out of his own goodwill due to his constitutional position. Therefore, there are so many states over the earth quarreling because of ideological differences or other selfish motives. But a king like Maharaj Yudhishthira had no ideology of his own. He had but to follow the instructions of the infallible Lord and the Lord's representative and the authorized agent Bhishma Deva. It is instructed in the Shastras that one should follow the great authority and the infallible Lord without any personal motive and manufactured ideology. It is instructed in the Shastras that one should follow the great authority and infallible Lord without any personal motive and manufactured ideology. Therefore, it was possible for Maharaj Yudhishthira to rule the whole world, including the seas, because the principles were infallible and universally applicable to everyone. The conception of one world state can only be fulfilled if we can follow the infallible authority. An imperfect human being cannot create an ideology acceptable to everyone. The only perfect and infallible can create a program which is applicable at every place and can be followed by all in the world. It is the person who rules, not the impersonal government. If the person is perfect, the government is perfect. If the person is a fool, the government is a fool's paradise. That is a law of nature. There are so many stories of imperfect kings or executive heads. Therefore, the executive head must be a trained person like Maharaj Yudhishthira, and he must have full autocratic power to rule over the world. The conception of a world state can take shape only under the regime of a perfect king like Maharaj Yudhishthira. The world was happy in those days because there were kings like Maharaj Yudhishthira to rule over the world. Thus ends a wonderful transcendental Bhakti Vedanta purport. Om Jnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So after the wonderful passing away of Lord Bhishma, a chapter on that, we now come to the 10th chapter where we are going to discuss the departure of Lord Krishna for Dwarka. But before we come to that, there is some background being created about how Maharaj Yudhishthira ruled the kingdom, and this is an answer which is being given in response to Shaunaka Rishi's question after killing his enemies who desired to usurp his rightful inheritance. How did the greatest of all religious men, Maharaj Yudhishthira, assisted by his brothers, rule his subject? Surely he could not freely enjoy his kingdom with unrestricted consciousness. So this is a question being asked by Shaunaka Muni. And in response, last week we saw this answer. Suta Goswami said, Lord Shri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the maintainer of the world, became pleased after re-establishing Maharaj Yudhishthira in his own kingdom and after restoring the Kuru dynasty, which had been exhausted by the bamboo fire of anger. Vamshadavagni nirhritam. So we saw this last week, and in this week's verse, Nishamya Bhishmoktam Athachutoktam Pravritta Vijnana Vidhuta Vibhramaha Sashasagam Indra Ivajitashraya paridhyupantam anujanuvartitah. Maharaj Yudhishthira, after being enlightened by what was spoken by Bhishma Deva and Lord Sri Krishna, the infallible, engaged himself in matters of perfect knowledge because all his misgivings were eradicated. Thus he ruled over the earth and seas and was followed by his younger brothers. So the mention of younger brothers, Anujanuvartitaha, is there in this verse, text 3 today. And it was also a question. The exact Saha Anujaihi. So Saha Anujaihi was a question. The exact words were, Maharaj, how did the greatest of all religious men, Maharaj Yudhishthir, assisted by his brothers, Saha Anujaihi. So it is already implied in the question that surely he was assisted by his brothers because throughout their life, brothers of Maharaj Yudhishthira, the 4 brothers, were always cooperative with their eldest brother. Therefore, it was already implied in the question, and the answer is clarifying how exactly they helped. It was Anuja Anuvartitaha, followed by his younger brothers. And we have heard there are 2 kinds of following. One is the Anukaran and Anucharan. Prabhupada always says, Anucharan is the right way to follow. Anucharan is to follow in the footsteps. Anusaran is a following in the footsteps, whereas Anukaran is imitating. So one may think that one is following by imitation, but that is not really following. As the king, Maharaj Yudhishthira, have his certain duties, and his younger brothers who are following him had other duties, happy following in the footsteps or following by cooperating in the plans of Maharaj Yudhishthira. So that is the clarification which is being given here. Another point that comes across several times in the purport is the concept of infallible Lord Krishna. Infallible Lord Krishna. Lord Krishna has been described as Achyuta Uktam, Achyuta. Ratham Sthapayame Achyuta. What was spoken by the infallible Lord Krishna, in word-to-word translation. And in the purport also we see many references to the fact that the Lord is infallible and we, the living entities, are fallible. So what is it that makes a pure devotee like Maharaj Yudhishthir also as perfect? What makes him perfect? What makes him perfect is that he's simply following the principles given by the perfect, infallible Supreme Lord. And he does not manufacture his own ideology. So it is instructed in the Shastras that one should follow the great authority and infallible Lord without any personal motive and manufactured ideology. Therefore, it was possible for Maharaj Yudhishthir to rule the whole world, including the seas, because the principles were infallible and universally applicable to everyone. The conception of one world state can only be fulfilled if we follow the infallible authority. So this authority system or parampara coming in our Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradayam, it belongs to such infallible authority system. So long as we stick to the infallible authority system, to that extent that we are able to follow, to that extent we have the possibility of seeing perfection in our lives, to the extent that we are able to follow. It is not that only for Maharaj Yudhishthir this instruction holds, but for all of us, to the extent that we are able to follow the perfect and infallible authority system, to that extent, we can experience perfection in our devotional service and devotional life. Anybody can experience it. This is the teaching of Srila Prabhupada, that any one of us can follow the system of the infallible authority and go back home, back to Godhead. It is not possible for us to go back home, back to Godhead, which is our goal, if we do not achieve perfection. So long as we are imperfect, we cannot go back home, back to Godhead. And what is that perfection? The perfection is to remove all our personal motive and fully align with the instructions of the infallible authority. So our entire journey of spiritual advancement can be summarized in the purport given here as simply making an effort to align our activities with the infallible authority system. This infallible authority system, it seems like a very straightforward statement, but a lifetime goes in that. Many of us we go backwards and forward and backwards, not able to stick to this. Why? The answer is given here. Without any personal motive and manufactured ideology. It seems very straightforward, but our entire existence and everything that we do is driven by personal motive. And so, for us to advance, we have to simply detect where we are introducing personal motive and where we are introducing manufactured ideology, and pause and reflect and see what we can do to reduce that or eliminate that ideally, so that we can become fully aligned with the infallible authority system. So here Maharaj Yudhishthir, it says that the modern English law of primogeniture, Prabhupada's words, many of us would not have even heard of this word before, primogeniture, or the law of inheritance by the firstborn, was also prevalent in those days when Maharaj Yudhishthir ruled the earth and the seas. So even today, if you see the international borders, any country that has a border with has a ocean on the shores of the land, there is a certain amount of distance in the ocean that is considered belonging to the country. And then after that distance, it becomes international waters. But here, this was ruled the earth, entire earth. So naturally, he's ruling the entire earth. He's ruling the all the seas also. And one interesting part, it's not explicitly mentioned here, but it's mentioned elsewhere by Prabhupada, that ruling the earth and the seas, it means that there are citizens. Naturally, if you have a kingdom, that means there are citizens, praja. And the modern understanding of the citizens of a country, the modern understanding is that refers to the people in that country, right? Citizen means people in that country. But as per the Vedic literature, that is not limiting like that. Praja includes all living entities born in that land. All the living entities that are born in that land. It's not just limited to human beings. Well, there is one verse. This comes in the 4th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, 20th chapter. This is in this chapter, Lord Vishnu, he appears in the sacrificial arena of Maharaj Prithu. And when Lord Vishnu appears in the sacrificial arena of Maharaj Prithu, he gives instructions to Maharaj Prithu. And I'll just read out this verse. Shreya prajapalanam eva ragyo yats sama parayes sukrita shastham amsham hartanyatha hrita punya prajananam arakshitam arakshita karaharo arakshita karaharo agham atti. To give protection to the general mass of people who are citizens of the state is prescribed by the occupational duty for a king. By acting in this way, the king in his next life shares 1/6 of the results of pious activities of citizens. But a king or executive head of state who simply collects taxes from citizens but does not give them proper protection as human beings has the results of his own pious activities taken away by the citizens, and in exchange for his not giving protection, he becomes liable to punishment and for impious activities of his subjects. So in the purport here, and as well as in other references to this verse, Prabhupada explains that the word praja is not just human citizens, but also all living creatures. And therefore it is essential for a king to provide protection not just to the people in the kingdom, but also animals. And in the modern age, that is missing, as the elected heads of states, even prior to this, in many medieval ages, many kings were not fully protecting the animals in the kingdom, allowing mass-scale slaughter. Of course, the mass-scale slaughter started with the industrial age, especially in the last 100 years. But prior to that, there were slaughter of animals that were allowed in a very big scale. But today it is extraordinarily large scale, where the slaughter of animals is allowed, and the kingdom profits from that. So that is not recommended, and the vision of Bhagavatam is that the protection applies to the animals also. In fact, the modern system of democracy has been condemned here by Prabhupada, or at least has been indicated as highly imperfect. Elsewhere, Prabhupada calls democracy as, anybody knows what Prabhupada refers to democracy? Demon crazy. So Prabhupada refers to democracy as demon crazy. It is not a system recommended in the Vedic literature, because you have a system where persons who are unaware, illiterate in the matters of administering a society are electing a person who they think would be the best person to lead them. So already there's a group of people whose goal is to simply enjoy life, enjoy their senses. Now if such persons get together and say, okay, who should we have as our leader? So what is the qualities they will see in that person? They will see the qualities that can increase their propensity for sense gratification. So therefore, the concept of electing a representative propagates the limitations that are already present in the society. Now, of course, if you do not have such an election, then by usurping power, some very unscrupulous elements have ruled various kingdoms, and the concept of democracy has come in response to such a situation. And therefore, this is a symptom of the age of Kali, where it has been foretold that people, boy and girl, meet and they get married simply on the basis of mutual attraction. And when the attraction goes away, they separate. All the activities in the age of Kali, they happen on the basis of sense gratification. And this goes on increasing. And this is what causes more and more degradation of the society. And therefore, democracy is one of the symptoms of the degradation of the age of Kali. But why is it that there is explanation here in this verse? If the person is perfect, the government is perfect. It is a person who rules, not the impersonal government. So we may be thinking that we are, even in democracy, It is not that every single government official is elected. Are they elected? Are the bureaucrats elected? They are not elected. It is the Prime Minister or President who is elected. And the Prime Minister or President and all the ministers are elected. But the bureaucrats who are actually function in the government, they are not elected. Who is bringing the water to our town here? That is the government. But they are not elected officials. But who gives them the direction to do so? They are the elected officials, right? So the government, the person matters. Government is not impersonal. That is true even in our current day society. So the person who rules, not the impersonal government. If the person is perfect, the government is perfect. If the person is a fool, the government is a fool's paradise. That is the law of nature. There are so many stories of imperfect kings or executive heads. Therefore, the executive head must be a trained person like Maharaj Yudhishthira. So Prabhupada often says that this training is what is lacking in our society today. And this Krishna consciousness movement is providing an opportunity for the people to get trained. So when people are properly trained, then even if that person through election comes and becomes the head of state, then they will be a good head of state, even if they come through the election process. But if they are not trained, if nobody in the society is getting trained, then whoever comes even as elected representative cannot be a perfect leader, and that will keep the world unhappy. And in the former days, in the time of Maharaj Yudhishthira, why was the world happy? The world was happy in those days because there were kings like Maharaj Yudhishthira to rule over the world. So the whole world is looking, how can we be happy? And we are thinking that there is system A or system B, different isms that are tried, different political, economic policies that are put in. But one way or the other, the happiness is eluding humanity. It is because the elected representatives today do not have the training that was present, that was available to the Kshatriya kings of that day. Specifically, Maharaj Yudhishthira was personally given instructions by the infallible Lord Krishna and Bhishma Deva. And what was the training? What is the training that a genuine head of state should have? What is the outlook? And what's the main difference between the outlook of someone like Maharaj Yudhishthira versus the present day elected representatives? So for that, we should look at Ishopanishad, first mantra. Please repeat after me. Ishavasyam idam sarvam yat kincha jagatyam jagat tena tyaktena bhunjita ma grida kasya svidhanam ma grida kasya svidhanam ma grida tasya svidhanam. Gridha, it is gridha, not grida. Ma gridha kasya svidhanam. Isha avasyam idam sarvam. So Isha refers to the Lord, Supreme Lord. Avasyam means controlled. Isha avasyam idam, this sarvam. Sarvam means all. Yat kincha. Yat kincha means whatever. Jagatyam, within the universe. Jagat, all that is animate or inanimate. Tena, by him. Tyaktena, set apart kota. Bhunjitaha, you should accept. Ma, do not.Ghridaha, endeavor to gain. Kasya svid, of anyone else. Dhanam, the wealth. So the first principle, the most basic principle, this is not even there is one more principle I will talk about next. But this is a very, very basic principle that an elected representative should have, which is that this kingdom or the country that that person is ruling is not his personal property. For that king himself or the ruler, elected representative, whoever it may be, if they treat that country or kingdom as their personal property, what will happen? They will plunder the wealth and grow their personal riches, which happens a lot today. You see that when persons are coming into the public office, often they'll have very less amount of wealth. And then over time, you'll see how it becomes millions and millions of dollars, they keeps growing. The bank accounts keep growing, and there's no known source of income like that. They're in public office. Where is that money coming from? And they'll say, oh, I had just 1 acre of land. The value grew of land. What can I do? But yeah, no, that is not just ordinary 1 acre of land. You knew where the railway line is going to come, and you purchased the land according to the development plans, and therefore the value grows much more. So the politicians of today, they have advanced knowledge of where the development is going to happen, and they purchase land based on that, and therefore the land value grows. This is just one of the very small ways in which politicians grow their wealth. There are many, many other ways. But the correct training for anyone who gets any kind of responsibility or power, not just political power, any kind of power, whether it may be in a company, somebody may become the CEO or a manager or vice president, anything. Any kind of power when a person gets, how do we discharge that power? And that is given with this view. It could even be service. Sometimes some service is given to us and we become a little bit attached to that service, and that's fine. But then we start to exert our right over that service, and we start to believe that the things that belong, that are used in that service, or that position, etc., that is mine. And so this is an attitude that will definitely help all of us. Everything animate or inanimate that is within this universe is controlled and owned by the Lord. One should therefore accept only those things necessary for himself, which are set aside as his quota, and one should not accept other things, knowing well to whom they belong. So this very, very fundamental, very basic instruction in Ishopanishad states that one should not be envious of what somebody else has, because that is their quota of possession. I have been given a small quota of possession. I should just take that quota and not try to go on increasing my quota and transgressing upon the others' rights to also have their quota. So the ownership, particularly, anything that I think I own is actually not owned by me. It is owned by everything animate or inanimate that is within this universe is controlled and owned by the Lord. That this means animate means what? Living beings. Inanimate is non-living beings. So if the Lord owns all the living beings and non-living beings, that means who owns me? The Lord. The Lord owns me also. I myself not an owner of myself. So where is the question? This body also does not belong to me. That is the next level of understanding for any person, let alone king of state, head of the state. This body also does not belong to me. The body belongs to the Lord, and therefore what should be the body engaged in? Service of the Lord. So that is the training that is required, and that is the training that is available to Yudhishthir Maharaj, and this training is absent in the present day society, and that is the cause of the distress. So how do we apply it to ourselves? We are not going to change the democracy system into an autocracy, right? That is not something that is practical. Because nor is there a presence of such trained Kshatriya kings who can take over and rule with this mindset. And so this is to be applied. First of all, we have to understand, a lot of times in our minds, we think that, oh, in the former days, we had this horrible medieval system called autocracy, where kings used to rule, and we are so lucky to have this democratic revolution in the society. And we are therefore very, very lucky to be living under this Western civilizational boon to humanity in the form of democracy. And then we are unable to reconcile how is it that in our Vedic system we had kings and they are considered to be perfect. And we are unable to explain it to ourselves or to others. Even in our own homes, to our children, etc., we are not able to explain. So this Bhagavatam gives you Prabhupada's purports. They give exact reason why that was perfect. Why it was perfect? Because they were trained to follow the perfect, infallible authority system. And they were trained to see their own body, let alone all the kingdom, the wealth, everything as belonging to the Lord. Since everything belongs to the Lord, everything must be engaged in the service of the Lord. And everything must be engaged in service of the Lord. But today what is happening? Everything is being engaged in sense gratification. So that brings me to the next verse in Srimad Bhagavatam. This is in first canto, second chapter, verse 10. Please repeat after me. Kamasya nendriya pritir labho jiveta yavata jivasya tattva jigyasa nartho yascheha karmabhi. Kamasya nendriya pritir. Kamasya, of the desires, na, not, indriya senses, pritihi, satisfaction. Kamasya nendriya pritihi, labho, labhaha, gain. Jiveta, self-preservation, yavata, so much so. Jivasya tattva jigyasa, of the living being, jivasya, tattva, the absolute truth, jigyasa, inquiries, na, not, nartho yascheha karmabhihi, na arthaha, na is not, arthaha and, yah cha iha, whatsoever else, karmabhihi, by occupational activities. Life's desires should never be directed towards sense gratification. One should desire only a healthy life or self-preservation. Since a human being is meant for inquiry about the absolute truth, nothing else should be the goal of one's works. So this is the next logical extension to Isavasyam idam sarvam, because once you realize that our body, mind, senses, as well as all the objects, all the land, the property, the wealth, everything, animate and inanimate, belongs to the Lord, then naturally the activities that are undertaken using this body and senses should not be for the body and senses. It should be for the Lord. One does not say that, let us say you all came here wearing some shoes, right? So how do you use the shoes? It is for you to wear. Not that the shoes wear themselves and protect themselves from rain. Imagine you buy the shoes and the shoe becomes very happy that, okay, now I will not become wet in the rain. The shoe does not become very hot in heat, or it is protecting the shoe from all the stones on the road. Is that why you buy the shoe? Is it why we make the shoes? To protect itself from the stones? No, it is protecting you, right? So the shoe belongs to you, so it protects you. Who do you belong to? Who do you belong to? Belong to Krishna. So who should we serve? Krishna. So serving ourselves, our senses, it is like shoe wanting to serve itself. So that is what, now if the shoe starts to serve itself, then that is not going to be a very satisfactory life for the shoe. So here the Bhagavatam says the life's desires should never be directed towards sense gratification. So the head of the state has to create programs that are not designed to titillate the senses. It is not designed to aggravate the senses. Rather, the programs of the government should be designed to ensure self-preservation. It does not mean that everybody should die of hunger. Oh, because everything is for Krishna, so let everyone die of hunger, it's okay. No. Self-preservation is important. So, one should desire only a healthy life or self-preservation, since a human being is meant for inquiry about the absolute truth. So the system of education that is prevalent in the society is not giving us the opportunity to inquire about absolute truth. In fact, it is discouraging that. If you look at all the education, anyone who has children and you are following the material, it mostly discourages any inquiries about absolute truth. There's no encouragement at all. So the entire ecosystem that we are in is absolutely stacked up against any inquiries into absolute truth. Whereas, and that is cause of bewilderment of the society. And Prabhupada says in the purport, of this verse, which I just read, the completely bewildered material civilization is wrongly directed towards fulfillment of desires in sense gratification. In such civilization, all spheres of life, the ultimate end is sense gratification. In politics, social service, altruism, philanthropy, and ultimately in religion, or even in salvation, the very same tint of sense gratification is ever increasingly predominant. In the political field, the leaders of men, fight with one another to fulfill their personal sense gratification. The voters adore the so-called leaders only when they promise sense gratification. So free electricity, vote. Free clothes, free gas, free this, free that, everything free, vote. As soon as the voters are dissatisfied in their own sense gratification, they dethrone the leaders. The leaders must always disappoint the voters by not satisfying the senses. The same is applicable in all other fields. So even though the voters are voting, thinking that their sense gratification will increase, are the leaders able to provide that sense gratification? No, nobody can provide. First of all, senses can never be satisfied. It burns like, it is lust, burns unsatisfied like fire, cannot be satisfied at all. So the leaders are always disappointing the people, and people always keep electing different leaders, hoping that this will change, that will change. It doesn't change. So, of course, a very long purport here. I'm not reading the entire thing. But basically, a trained king like Maharaj Yudhishthir, the world was happy under kings like this because they understood these principles. Kamasya nendriya pritir labho jiveta yavata jivasya tattva jigyasa narthol yascheha karmabhihi. And they would rule with this goal of promoting a civilization, a culture that promotes tattva jigyasa. Tattva jigyasa is extremely important. And in our life also, if we are finding that our interest in Krishna consciousness is diminishing or things are becoming a bit routine, then the cause is that tattva jigyasa is missing. Because we are not actually inquiring in our heart about absolute truth. Maybe perhaps in the beginning days, there might have been some inquiry. But as time goes on, sometimes it happens. If our service is lacking, if our sadhana is becoming weaker, if we go a little deeper, we will find that tattva jigyasa is missing. We think we have learnt what there is to learn. Krishna is Supreme Personality of Godhead. Our Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya is infallible authority system. Our life should be directed in alignment with authority. Over. Learnt. Okay, now tomorrow what? What is there to learn? And because we think there is nothing left to learn, our tattva jigyasa becomes diminished. And if tattva jigyasa is diminished, what happens? Because our intellect and our mind is yearning for some activity, for something. It wants to do something, it wants to learn something. So we start learning about how to enjoy senses. Because we think we have finished learning spiritual knowledge. There's nothing further to learn. Whatever I had to learn, I have already learned. Now it is simply doing the service. Simply I'll come and do the service. Yes, but simply doing service never becomes simply doing service because mind is never simply resting and focusing on the service. It is doing or going on its own path. And what's it going on? Sense gratification, curiosity. There's a curiosity of how. Have you heard about this latest process, like movie or some vacation spot or something, right? So there's a curiosity. When somebody comes and tells us that ignites a curiosity. And why is it that we find those attractive? It's because our mind is already on the lookout for sense gratification means. How can I give my children maximum sense gratification opportunities? This is often, for any parent, this is a big thing as they see the children smile. And, the smile on the child's face lights up the day. So how do we make the child smile? Giving all kinds of sense gratification opportunities. Learn everything. You should learn. Exposure, time for exposure. Learn everything. So actually in the process, we are also enjoying the senses. And not only the enjoyment, it's actually not the enjoyment. It is a lookout for the enjoyment, which is the inquiry into enjoyment. And that inquiry into enjoyment is there. That means there's no place for inquiry into tattva jigyasa, tattvam, or absolute truth. There is no place for that inquiry. So I think if as we are trying to advance, a couple of things which I have pointed out here. The first is, or maybe three things I would say. The first is that aligning with the infallible authority system and not imitation, following the footstep and having full faith in the authority system makes us perfect to the degree that we are able to align ourselves in that path. And then we have this other principle of tattva jigyasa that we must always try to inculcate in our lives and not forget that. Because without the curiosity to learn, learning stops. We are not looking to learn, then everything that is given as information becomes burden. It is not actually something we look forward to. And we are not able to absorb the content that is shared with us in forums like this because we are not looking to learn. The looking to learn has been extinguished. The fire to learn has been extinguished by the desire to gratify our senses in different newer ways. Although they are always baffled. Also, there are, in the third point here is that the system of governance, there should be clarity in our mind because Bhagavatam is giving us clear-cut white and black answer that a democracy system where individuals are voting for increasing their sense gratification is not going to lead any kind of emancipation of the society. It's not going to help the world be happy. We may not be able to change it right now, but at least we can understand that that is one of the big reasons why the world is unhappy is because of the system where individuals whose goal is sense gratification are electing other people who are promising further increase of sense gratification. But what the world needs is a system of training like what Maharaj Yudhishthira has gone through. He was very, very fortunate that he was trained directly by Bhishma Deva and Lord Shri Krishna, but we are not any less fortunate because that same exact knowledge that he received, the same knowledge is available to us in the system of Parampara, the infallible authority system. If we align with that, our life can also become perfect. I'll stop here and see if you have any questions, comments. In a devotee's life, how does he control? Okay. Mataji, what's your question?
Prabhu, you mentioned about if we can be perfect, to be perfect, we should follow infallible authority. In today's world, everyone is prone to do mistakes. So in that situation, how can we target to be perfect and then go to God?
I'll answer this. It's an easier question. I'll come to you. So everyone is imperfect because living being is prone to 4 defects. What are the 4 defects? Anger. No, there is a specific, although that is a defect, but there is a specific thing called 4 limitations of or defects of any living being. Cheating, yes, very good. Cheating, propensity to cheat. And then? Imperfect senses, yes. Propensity to commit mistakes. Senses are imperfect. So senses are imperfect. Those are the 4 things. So therefore, so long as we are relying on a conditioned living entity's conclusions or created methodology, concocted, what is given here, manufactured ideology, then yes, we cannot become perfect. But the infallible authority system means that the conclusion of the Vedic literature comes from Krishna himself. And if that is not changed in any way, it is coming down from Acharya to Acharya, spiritual master to disciple like that in disciplic succession, then that is not our manufactured ideology. So authority system means that the ideology is coming directly from Krishna, and therefore it is perfect. Now, but you have some other doubt in that. I see that you're not satisfied. What is the doubt?
We can talk in detail. My only thing
Is your question that in details, like for example, if somebody says, okay, in order to achieve, let's say, to have a perfect anniversary celebration, this book must be kept here. Then it will be perfect. And then you may wonder, but this instruction about keeping this book here was not given by Krishna, nor was it given by Prabhupada. It is given by my authority, immediate authority, and he is imperfect. So how can we be sure that this minor instruction that was given to us is as perfect as the instructions that we should chant 16 rounds every day? Is that your question? Something like that? Deeper, more in details?
more details, like not like considering to the following
How can we ever achieve perfection, is your question. How to, oh, that is by the mercy of Guru and Krishna, absolutely possible. So how did, so if you look at, so there are different siddhi. This is sadhana siddhi versus kripa siddhi. So our whole goal here is that we should have no doubt that we can achieve perfection. If you chant the holy name, sadhyo hridi avar susrushubhit tatshanat. Prabhu would have immediately found the verse. Astu chivadam tapatrayon mulanam krite parer ishwaraha. What was the first line? Dharma prochita kaitavo atro paramo nirmal saranam satam vedyam vastavam atru shivadam tapatraya unmulanam. So, Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krite Kimva Parer Ishwaraha Sadhyo Hridi Avaradhyate Atra Kritabhi Sustrushurbhit Tatshanat. So, Srimad Bhagavatam Tapatraya Unmulanam. So, all the Tapatrayam, the three kinds of suffering that we are having, the Adi Daivika suffering, Adi Bhautika, Adhyatmika, all these sufferings, all of this can be completely uprooted by hearing of Bhagavatam. So you may say, but wait a minute, I'm just a conditioned soul. Yes, but Bhagavatam is so powerful that it can lead us to perfection. That is how Maharaj Parikshit is a perfect devotee. Yudhishthir here. Maharaj Yudhishthir is perfect, even though he's a living being, Tatastha Shakti, sometimes attracted by Maya, sometimes attracted by Krishna. But he's a perfected being. Why? That is the process of not saying that he is eternal associate of the Lord. He is Nitya Siddha. But as far as we are concerned, we are following the process of sadhana siddhi. And in this process of sadhana siddhi, by the remaining dependent on the mercy of the spiritual master takes us in the direction by holding our hand. He's holding our hand and he's taking us to perfection. So we have to follow the direction and we'll graduate. Just as a child who's enrolled in the first standard, first grade in a school, authorized school, that's the child, if he tries to think, how can I ever understand this advanced AP calculus or some Laplacian transforms? How can I ever study that? It does not seem logical to me that I should ever be able to study Laplacian transforms, Fourier transforms. I don't even know those equations anymore. But can you imagine a first standard child being able to, when you were in first standard, could you have imagined that you could have mastered all this calculus, matrix, computation? It's not possible. But you have the faith that your parents have enrolled you in that. That means one day it will happen, right? So we are in that first standard stage. We have enrolled in the class. So we have to go through the class and have faith that when we graduate, Fourier transforms will be known. You'll know it. As every day we study what has been given to us today, we do our homework, what has been given to us today, then we come next day and you won't be given punishment. Otherwise punishment will come. And to us punishment comes how? If we don't do our homework, it is not that somebody has to give you punishment. Actually the person giving punishment is being very, very compassionate, like a teacher. If the teacher does not give punishment, what will happen? Next day also you won't do homework. But actually our punishment is already coming in the form of diminished tattva jigyasa. If we don't do our homework, tattva jigyasa goes away. I'll come to you. Your question is how the Lord is controlling all animate and inanimate living beings. How the Lord is controlling? How means the Lord is already the controller. Mamaivamsho jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana. We are all part and parcel of the Lord. So He's already controlling us. There is this other verse, everybody follows my path in all circumstances. What is that verse? Everybody follows my path. As I reward everyone as they surrender. The word ye yatha mam prapadyante tam sateva bhajamyaham mama varthamanu anuvartante manushya partha sarvasha. So manushya partha sarvasha. In all circumstances, people are already following the scheme of the Lord. We don't have any option in that. Either we are under the direct Daivi Maya, under the internal energy of the Lord, or we are under the control of external energy of the Lord. Can you fly right now? No. Who is controlling that? Material nature, the laws of nature are controlling, right? Otherwise you would have flown currently. Right now, if you wanted, you can just fly away. But can you do that? You cannot do that. Why? The Lord is controlling indirectly through laws of nature, external energy. But Narad Muni can fly. Whenever he wants, wherever he wants, he can fly. How? He is under the Daivi Prakriti. He is under the Daivi Maya nature of the Lord, where maybe Maya is not the right word. Daivi Prakriti is the right word. He is under the internal energy of the Lord, which is much more relaxed, because it's fully aligned with the wishes of the Lord, perfected being. But it is all under the control of the Lord. How the planets are all placed in their orbits and they're moving in their orbits. You may think it is due to gravity. That is just a name given by the modern scientists for it, but it is an arrangement of the nature, and that nature is controlled by the Lord. Creation, sustenance, destruction is all happening. Srishti sthiti pralaya sadhana shakti rekha. So, cha eva yasya bhunani vibharti Durga. So Durga, the predominating deity of the controller of the external energy of the Lord, is controlling this universe so that we stay in this prison house which has been created for us. Does it answer your question? Or follow-up question, did you say? Okay.
So how can you understand the control that we have been given? Or is that just an illusion?
What kind of control we have been given?
For example, like in the club, like
Uh,
the university.
yeah.
So for example, let's say one student was supposed to come today, but he said that he slept late. And I feel like, oh, I was not able to bring him.
This seems like lack of control. It doesn't seem like control. You're saying, what is your question exactly with respect to control? So how to understand the control given to us, you're saying. But the example that you gave where some students slept and could not come is lack of control.
Yeah. From my end.
Yeah. That's what we're saying. You have no control. But you're trying to say that you have control. Give some example where you think you have control. Like, for example, you have control over sitting or standing up. You decide right now that you're sitting, correct? You are deciding that you're sitting, right? You're not standing up right now, although Aryan's legs are giving way. He would very much prefer to stand up right now. It's already a lot of time. So you have a control. You're thinking that you have control over sitting or standing. Is that a good example? Yes. Yeah. So actually, you don't have. You have a control over your desire to sit or stand. You have a desire to sit, you have a desire to stand. But you have no control over whether he can stand or not. Right now, if Aryan stands, he will not be able to stand straight, because his legs have already slept off. He has no control over his legs. You ask him, like normally he has control over his legs very well, but right now he has no control over his legs. If he stands up, he'll be struggling to stand. So what control we think we have, actually we have no control. It is executed by all the activities. Prakritehi kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvashah ankar vimudatma kartaraham iti manyate. You're thinking that you are standing up, but you're simply desiring to stand up. The actual activity of standing up is carried out by material nature under the explicit sanction of the Paramatma state in every atom of every atom in the entire universe. We'll stop here. Granthara Srimad Bhagavatam ki. Jagat Guru Shila